The Panamorph DCR lens is now installed in the Techthusiasm home theater. I've used it for a little while. I've tinkered around with it. I've watched some content and a movie on it, and it's time to talk about it. So let's break it all down and muse on some reflections of adding this kind of final piece of sorts to the Techthusiasm video chain. So just to lay the foundation here, again, this is a DCR plus XM2 lens kit from Panamorph sitting on a JVC NZ900 projector. I'm projecting with about an 18-foot throw distance to 163-inch scope Seymour AV Center Stage XD material acoustically transparent screen. I am also running the video chain with a madVR NV Extreme Mark II video processor. In the progression of my home theater, I started doing the lens memory zooming shifting type thing, and then along the way, of course, added the madVR NV, upgraded to the JVC, and now adding the lens basically in that order. So I've experienced every type of kind of permutation of setup of doing a scoped aspect ratio home theater. Let's talk about the lens kit a little bit at first. So you buy the lens kit, what do you get? Well, you get the lens assembly itself, of course. You get a big long bracket, which is basically your mounting bracket to affix the lens with its additional brackets to the projector and put it in the right location. You get the mounting piece that goes into the longer bracket, and you get the arms that attach the lens to that U-shaped bracket itself, along with some requisite screws and spacers and other bits and pieces. One thing to note is there's more in the kit in terms of parts and pieces than you actually use in the entirety of the installation. Depending on the specifics of how you're mounting the lens, the type of projector you have, the type of spacing you need, you will use some of the screws and some of the spacers over the others. Now, what is this thing doing? Of course, this is an anamorphic lens, and the DCR itself is a vertical compression lens. So what's happening is as the image goes through the lens, it is being squished down and widened out to basically fill the screen. So when we think about content, we talk about scope content. Everything, of course, is being content originated in a 3840 by 2160 rectangular type of field. Scope content has black bars above and below that. What we need to have happen is that the content needs to be stretched vertically to fill that entire pixel space, and then when that image passes through the projector, passes through the lens, it will get squished back down and fill out the width. One of the things that I wasn't, I guess, fully understanding at first is, well, what happens when we have content that is less than scope, 16:9, 185, what happens then and how does it work? Well, fundamentally what needs to happen is the same type of operation, is that you need things filling the vertical space, but in a squished horizontal type of compression so that it can be vertically compressed afterward and squished out to the side. Now you can do this with your projector natively, but I think the lens really wants to do it in conjunction with something like a video processor, a madVR, or Lumagen. Either one can do the job, giving you the ability to have the video processor do the pixel scaling and whatnot to get the image that you want through the lens so that you get the image that you want actually up on the screen. When everything is set correctly, if you watch some of this content, 16:9 content or other aspect ratios, what you're going to find again is everybody looks really thin and tall so that they have the proper aspect ratio when they pass through. And having the lens like this in conjunction with something like the madVR or video processor gives you the ability to retain original aspect ratios without having to change anamorphic settings in the projector or jump through other types of configuration hoops. It's nice with the madVR to be able to watch a 16:9 movie in a resulting 16:9 aspect ratio, all natively managed and taken care of without having to intervene manually or do any type of an advanced control system setup to accomplish that. Basically set it, forget it. So everything that displays in the home theater, regardless of what the content aspect ratio relative to the desired aspect ratio on the screen is, everything passes through the lens and it all works just great. All right, so let's talk about installation. First thing we got to do, of course, is get the projector out of whatever environment it's in, whether that's a ceiling mount or in my case here, I've got kind of a tabletop shelf install in the closet here behind me. Take the projector out, set it down, flip it over, take that big bracket, lay it on the underside, and then use whatever requisite screws belong to the type of projector that you have. Surprisingly, that big bracket for the JVC here is only actually held on kind of by 2 screws right in the middle, but it's perfectly stable and fine for the lens. After that, get your projector back to wherever it was installed before that. Let me just say, lifting 60, 70-ish pounds into this kind of very trim opening This closet definitely requires some heft, thanks to the tonal in the other room there. I was able to accomplish that. After that, we want to start putting the lens together. Essentially, we assemble all the bracketing to the lens, not on the unit itself, but we put the different pieces together, and then as a whole, we take the lens and the brackets and put them on to the bracket extending under the lip of the projector there. One thing to keep in mind is that regardless of whether you have a ceiling installation or a tabletop installation, the lens is always going to be in the same orientation with the word Panamorph facing down. I thought that was interesting. That was one of the things that kind of confused me reading the instructions, and I did call for some validation about, in fact, regardless of the orientation of the projector, the lens stays in the same orientation. So as it was, the lens came with the two side brackets already installed for essentially a ceiling mount orientation. So those brackets had to be removed, flip them to opposite sides so that the lens itself would fit by mounting down instead of mounting up into the U-shaped bracket assembly. No big deal, a couple screws in and out, and that's all set to go. Then we take the lens with those bracket arms and we kind of affix them to the U-shaped bracket. I started in what was ultimately the lowest of the notched settings of the connection of those two brackets, and that's ultimately where the lens stayed in the final installation as well. So maybe as a recommendation, start there, or if you know that you need some more vertical space or offset, then you have some choice where you want to start there. The U-shaped bracket basically has some teeth in it, and you can set your screws and tighten it up as you need to. So basically then now the lens with its arms is affixed to the U-shaped bracket, and we have a whole assembly. The other thing that you need to decide is how much spacer space do you need between essentially the bracket coming out from the projector and the U-shaped bracket holding the lens itself. Now I went with the middle ones. By default it seemed about right. There are a couple different sizes again included in the kit, and you're only going to use one. Whatever size spacers you use dictates what size of screws you use, and very simply the screws just thread down through the bracket and through the spacers, and they'll be sticking out a little bit of the teeth essentially of those screws will be sticking out through the bottom. You just come over to your projector then, set it right on there. You'll see the bottom of those screws sticking out from the underside essentially of the bracket, or the top of the bracket I suppose if you're actually inverted with the ceiling mount, and you have a couple of little thumb screw caps that you tighten up to get it all cinched in, and now the lens would be sitting freely on the bracket and in the light path relatively of the projector. Now we peel the film off, of course, one of my favorite things to do here on the channel, peel the film off of glass and displays, and work on then the fine-tuning detail of it. Where does the lens need to sit? You have a little bit of multiple planes of adjustment essentially for the lens, similar to how we have multiple planes of adjustment for the projector itself, getting it all squared up to the screen. So the physical installation was pretty straightforward once you know kind of what bits and pieces you need. The alignment stuff really isn't anything that we're all not pretty much used to, I guess, if you've done or had a projection-based home theater environment for a while. So it's not rocket science. I would say anybody out there shouldn't feel that they couldn't basically do this process and get it set up. There is one thing that I kind of messed up a little bit from where I left the lens initially, because I don't recall really seeing any detail about it in the instruction manual, and that's that I had the lens actually sitting all the way towards the forward position on the bracket. There's slots that allow you to slide the lens forward and back, again, in addition to tilt and other types of adjustments that you can make. It was actually talking about it in the live stream that queued it up into my mind that of all the different little tweaks that I made, that was one thing that I didn't actually experiment with, that I had left the lens all the way forward, and coming to a conclusion or an understanding actually that no, the lens should be as close to the projector lens to the front of the projector as you can get it, ultimately resulting in hopefully less distortion and some better performance and stuff out of the lens itself. So keep that in mind as you're situating things. You want to be able to slide the lens back and get it as close to the projector as you can. I have since made that tweak in here and actually came back down again just a few days ago for a whole readjustment, realignment, and readjusting the madVR and all of that stuff to get it kind of queued up and set up on the screen. And I think it did have a difference for the better by having the lens directly adjacent to the face of the projector. So one thing that I do experience with the lens in this setup, and that is kind of expected or most likely to be the case, I think, with the DCR, is some amount of barrel distortion. So I do have effects of barrel distortion on my screen. It's something that I do plan to spend a little bit more time with, just to see if there is any more slight tweak or positioning or something along those lines that I can do to naturally eliminate as much of that as possible. However, I don't have a super long throw in here. Again, 18 feet from the screen to the front of my lens. It's like a 1.45 throw ratio. Of course, if I had a longer throw, I would absolutely, after seeing barrel distortion now on my screen, I would absolutely be buying the alpha lens, I think, if at all possible. Why bother having distortion and then trying to use a video processor like the madVR to fix it, and we're kind of distorting and anti-distorting and to offset it and whatever. If you can just avoid that in your setup, all the better, I would say. However, it wasn't recommended to me to do the alpha because I don't have like a 1.6 or greater throw ratio in the theater here. It would be interesting to see if I could move this projector further back with the DCR, would the amount of barrel distortion that I get be mitigated or eliminated, or at least reduced in some way. As it is, I don't feel the distortion is bad. I definitely wouldn't be taking the lens out of the installation for the other virtues that it provides, but it's there, and it's something that needs to be managed and handled with some zooming and shifting and positioning, and possibly a little bit of an application of geometry correction using the madVR NV Extreme Mark II. Now, alignment. I have to admit, full stop, that aligning projector to a screen is just one of those things in home theater that I absolutely despise. I'm just such a perfectionist. I want to get everything exactly squared as much as I can get it. And the reality is, like, level in our homes is not level. Our walls, the way things are hanging, right? We have all of these different disparate things that theoretically should be all completely squared up and level and aligned to each other. And the reality is there's micro problems in every little thing that hitting the squares and hitting the edges and getting everything perfectly aligned is just an exercise to me in frustration to my limited patience and my OCD. That said, I've done the best job that I can do. I do look forward to having Sammy Prescott Jr. over, another pair of hands and eyes, so that we can really try to tweak and see if there is any more adjustment necessary. But I'm happy where I ended up. Of course, we want to get the projector lined up, the corners of the image to the corners of the screen, and then have that bit of barrel distortion, if any, on the four sides, kind of falling on the velvet fabric or the frame of your screen all around it, thus making it easier then after that to go in to the madVR, set up the screen space boundaries as well, and then just grab a couple of those points with the geometry correction after the fact and make those tweaks. So again, projector alignment, followed by madVR screen space configuration, followed by geometry correction if you're going to do it. And of course, there's one basic setting that you need to put in something like the madVR to support a Panamorph, just telling it, yes, I have an anamorphic lens, and it has basically a zoom factor of whatever it may be. My understanding for the DCR is that's a 1.25 factor. And as I mentioned earlier, I think these things really go together in a progressive way. Get a really great projector, then consider a video processor, then consider a lens. I would only do it if it were me in that order, because I really want the video processor doing the things to make the use of the lens just consistent without having intervention and settings differences and stuff like that. If you go for a lens only with a projector, then depending on your content and your aspect ratios, you may have to be manually changing anamorphic modes or manipulating stuff. The video processor takes that all out of the equation. All right, so let's talk about some final thoughts and some measurements here. So ultimately, what are the reasons that we do this? Why do we spend this money? This is not an inexpensive part of a video chain in a home theater environment. The MSRP list price for a lens of this type is about $8,000-$9,000, plus or minus a little bit depending if you go for the DCR or the Alpha. Well, what we're getting out of it essentially is two things. One is we're taking advantage of all of the pixels of our display. Again, when we're thinking about home theater projection, we're often, I think usually, I know I am for sure, thinking most often about movies. Most of the movies that we're watching are in wider than 16:9. They're in scope 235, 240 type of aspect ratios. A lot of premium television shows nowadays on the like of Disney Plus, HBO Max, and those sorts of content providers are also in scope, very wide aspect ratios as well. So it's a bummer to take a very expensive projector and zoom a bunch of its resolution essentially off the screen into the ether, into the blackness above and below our screen. The lens lets us harness all of that, harness essentially all of the value, the money spent, right, the performance out of the projector that's shooting through it. We're able to maximize it using every single pixel of the projector's array and put it on the screen. And in the case of something like a JVC with the DCR, we're actually even able to take advantage of the 4096 pixel space beyond just the 3840. That's what would be a regular panel or a regular 4K content image. So extra pixels conceivably give us more sharpness. Extra pixels also give us more light. And so the use of all of those pixels is where the light benefit of adding a lens to a projector comes from. Now, a lot of these lenses might indicate light boosts in the area of 20-some%. I think I've even seen some listed a number up above that. I can say based on my measurements, when I ran this projector, again, JVC NZ900, in my specific environment, with my specific logistics and all of that, again, throw distance, screen, all of these things factor into the results that you're going to get out of your light output. But using my light meter, which is admittedly a fairly cheap model just off of Amazon, I got 386 lux, and that's with no color filter in place, automatic laser dimming turned off, and a fully open aperture. Now, same settings, same conditions, and all of that. With the lens in place, what was the lux measurement change? What was the new value? Drum roll, please. It was about 460 lux. So you divide 460 divided by 386, and you get about a 19% increase in overall light output. So not 30% or more, right? But still a pretty considerable amount of light. If we think about how much more light do we get out of these projector models as we go, like from an NZ700 to an 800 to a 900, maybe we're getting like a few hundred lumens at best. That's like not even 10% maybe or so step in brightness. So we're talking about a very considerable upgrade, increase in brightness, equivalent to more than a level of projector model upgrade in between. And again, of course, we're harnessing the entirety of all of those pixels worth of resolution. I can say that my image in this room has never been brighter, and it certainly has never been sharper. I watched Deadpool and Wolverine in the setup with the lens, and my jaw just hit the floor here. Just an absolutely amazing image. Absolutely fantastic. I've already felt that the upgrade from the NX7 to the NZ900 was very considerable. It was already throwing about twice as much light output, and I think I could notice that 100mm lens, the sharpness and all of that detail more clearly in the picture than I could before. This is like icing on the cake, taking it to even that further kind of next level of amazingness. Essentially here, we're pretty much at an endgame level in a projection setup, madVR NV Extreme Mark II, JVC NZ900, and a Panamorph on it. If we go any further than this for projection, we're talking like $70-some thousand for a GTZ 380 or some Barco things and other stuff like that. So as the pinnacle of one tier of endgame progression of home theater projection, I am just blown away and floored by the video image that I'm watching on this screen now. As it is, I was still kind of tuning my results to arrive at about 100 nits or so on the screen specifically. What that has actually allowed me to do with the lens is turn the laser all the way down from 100 to 65. The value of that, of course, is we're basically 2 brackets down in the fan curve of the projector, and it is noticeably quieter now running the laser a lot lower than running the laser at 100, which is great. Less obstruction, obtrusion of noise into the environment during quiet passages and stuff like that. I never found the NZ900 to be terribly loud to begin with, unless of course it's on for a really extended period of time. Messing around in here, doing demos like an all-day type of thing, it would probably heat up and start blowing pretty good. But for the course of a regular movie or a regular viewing, it's been good anyway. Now again, it's even better. It's kind of like the whole thing with the lens to begin with. We were already having a really, really awesome result. Now it's even just basically another step better. So you're going to ask me in the comments, well, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Should I buy a lens? I can't say whether this is worth it for you. If that sounds like deflection, I'm sorry, I don't know. But all of these things, like what projector do you need, and how much should you spend on your projector? What level of projector do you want to buy? Do you need a video processor? Should I get a better projector? and not do the video processor? Should I do a lesser projector and get a video processor? How do I function a lens in there? A lot of it really just boils down to, like, are you comfortable spending all of this money? If you have the money to spend, you really enjoy the video chain part of the hobby, then by all means get all the bits and pieces and put them all together and achieve essentially the best result that it's possible for you to achieve. If you got to weigh pros and cons, you don't really have the money to begin with, or you got to weigh pros and cons of how you want to spend it, where you want to spend it, either in your video chain, or is there actually something more impactful that you would want to spend your money on in your room, spending on audio versus video, spending on treatments or seating instead of this? That's where a lot of the question about worth it comes in, and it's really hard for me to make just any single determination of that for you. I am happy to talk with you about it. Of course, I am a dealer for all this stuff. I can sell the JVC projectors. I can actually sell the Panamorph lenses. I can sell kaleidoscopes and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you're thinking about it, you want to puzzle it through, you want to talk about it, you want to discuss your specific situation, because I really do believe the value proposition of this stuff is individually specific. It's based on asking a number of questions about your setup and where you want to go with it, what you're trying to achieve, and all of that to determine really if something is worth it or not in the end. But reach out to me, Jeremy at Techthusiasm.net. Happy to chat, happy to have a call, happy to lend my advice, and if you want any of this stuff, great. If not, I still am happy to advise and consult in all of those things. As it is, I'll say definitely it was worth it for me. This room continues to just continue ratcheting up in its quality, in all of the things that I have in here, and I couldn't be happier with all of the results. I do look forward to what will happen with the entire setup and potential impacts of getting the projector professionally calibrated when Sammy Prescott Jr. comes. And again, maybe we can make some tweaks, maybe we can make some adjustments, maybe eliminate a little bit more of the barrel distortion working together. Maybe we can get a little bit better of alignment between the projector, the lens, and the screen. That would be cool. We'll see where the brightness goes after calibration, and we'll see where all of the final settings kind of end up. So stick around to the channel. I'll be talking about this in future content. I'll probably go into it in detail as well in some future live streams. If you have questions about it, again, sound off in the comments. Happy to chat there, or reach out, Jeremy at Techthusiasm.net. If you would like to support me, buy stuff from me. Again, I'm a dealer for a whole bunch of this stuff. I also have a whole bunch of affiliates and business partners and referrals down in the description there. Audio advice, Amazon, Newegg, Best Buy, Target, and more. Use them. Have your spouse or significant other use them. The family, always much appreciated. Become a channel member if you would. Leave a super thanks, PayPal, Venmo tip at your convenience. Thank you. Otherwise, please do that regular YouTube stuff. Hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Let's discuss. Do you have a Panamorph lens in your setup? What do you think about it? Which one do you have? And what did it do to improve your home theater projection game? Thanks for watching, and come on back for more home theater discussion and fun.